Hello and welcome to another edition of California CEO Magazine at californiaceo.net. My name is Jeff Allen and it's good to see you again. Thanks so much for tuning in. In Southern California, many people will agree that the daily commute is as much a part of their daily lives as that first cup of coffee in the morning or checking their smartphone the minute they roll out of bed. Yet few may know much about one particular organization that is charged by its 191 member cities in 6 Southern California counties with the Herculean task of drawing up the plans and proposing the initiatives that help keep commuters and freight traffic moving efficiently and safely on the region's extensive highway and rail system. This organization is the Southern California Association of Governments, or SCAG for short. And since most of the consumer goods that are imported to our country arrive at the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles and then are transported by train or truck through Southern California to the rest of the nation, SCAG's importance to the local, regional, and national economies cannot be overstated. California CEO Magazine was on hand at SCAG's 2014 Regional Conference and General Assembly at the Renaissance Esmeralda Resort in Indian Wells, where I had the chance to talk with a number of the event's key participants, including SCAG's Executive Director, Hasan Ikhrata. I started by asking Mr. Ikhrata about the new $302 billion Surface Transportation Reauthorization Plan recently sent to Congress and how vital that bill is toward funding overdue renovations and repairs to Southern California's transportation infrastructure. We finally understand now that the proposal for the surface authorization of $302 billion, that transportation plan, has finally made its way to Congress. How do you feel about it? And tell us just kind of a little bit about your attitude about this moving forward and how important it is.
It's a very important issue for the country, for us to be globally competitive with other nations that are investing heavily in transportation. We must have a bill that answers all the questions that we need to be answered.
Short of that, Mr. Ikhrata, here at the General Assembly, SCAG working with 191 member cities, what are some of the other issues, some of the key common themes, issues that those cities are facing right now that SCAG is working with them to improve?
Well, our president touched on this. There's a lot of issues that we're facing that don't stop at the city boundaries. Water issues, energy issues, health issues that need an organization like SCAG to have the discussion started about how we deal with them. You know, we have a drought in California, obviously have a huge implications for parts of our region that are farming, have farming lands. Therefore, the issues that the president touched on in his speech, that some people might say it is above and beyond the original mission of SCAG, is the kind of issues we need to pay attention to. And I would say if people don't think water is linked to transportation, linked to economic development, then pretty much nothing else matters as far as I'm concerned.
This year's focus at SCAG's regional conference was technology's impact on mobility and opportunity. The keynote speaker was Gregory Winfrey, the Assistant Secretary for Research and Technology at the U.S. Department of Transportation. In a discussion we had just after his speech, Mr. Winfrey talked about how his department and the nation as a whole rely on California for leading the way in transportation research and development, with an emphasis on new technologies that work to keep drivers safer. The U.S. Department of Transportation looks to the state of California for its continuing work in research and technology developments with respect to transportation. What are some of the key initiatives that you're working on right now or looking toward California, and specifically Southern California, as continuing to work on and develop toward the improvement of transportation infrastructure?
Well, we've got a long partnership, as you've mentioned, with many institutions here in the state. For my agency, principally, it would have to be with the universities in the University Transportation Centers program. The Region 9 UTC is housed here, led by Berkeley, and you have many other universities that participate in that program, including USC and many of the schools in the state system. So California, from an academic perspective, is one of our lead hotbeds of this kind of training for the next generation of transportation professionals, but also importantly for issues like congestion management, mobility, looking at environmental impacts, how to reduce greenhouse gases, transit benefits, and pretty much everything that touches transportation has a home here in the state of California, and we rely upon innovations in those spaces to benefit our 21st century transportation system.
The executive director, Hasan Ikhrata of the Southern California Association of Governments, has applauded the Obama administration for the $302 billion surface transportation reauthorization plan that's now gone to Congress.
Yes.
How critical is that toward infrastructure improvements?
We see it as extraordinarily critical, and that's for a couple of reasons. The dollars are significant, but more important than the dollars is an intellectual reset on how transportation is thought about in this country. For the past several rounds, we've had short-term funding, we've had continuing resolutions, we've had two-year bills. Ask any state DOT CEO, and he or she will tell you it's impossible to have long-term planning with short-term dollars. And the kinds of fixes we need for our infrastructure require long-term planning. So this is an opportunity for the country to level set on thinking about how it funds transportation, infrastructure, investment, and looks at it from a four-year perspective. Not too long ago, under the Safety Lou legislation, we had 6-year funding for transportation, but MAP 21 was 2 years, right? So it's time for us to start thinking beyond, again, short-term funding and looking at it from a long-term perspective to allow state DOTs the time, the flexibility, and more importantly, the funding to focus on our crumbling infrastructure.
I also spoke with Art Leahy, the CEO of LA Metro, the company that oversees the greater LA metropolitan area's network of bus, subway, and light rail lines. We talked about that surface authorization plan Mr. Ikhrata and I discussed, and the approaching end of the decades-old Highway Trust Fund, and where else the money could come from to help fund needed improvements to the region's highway and rail lines. Highway Trust Fund, obviously something that you've got some thoughts about, and we've got the new $302 billion surface transportation bill that has just been proposed and set before Congress. The Highway Trust Fund is scheduled to expire toward the end of the fiscal year here coming up. What's next?
Well, I don't know. There's going to be a Senate bill, there's going to be a House bill, and obviously the administration's bill. We hope that they can get together and get something passed. We need roads, we need railroads, we need transit. These are all traditional areas of investment by the federal government.
From where you said, what are the most significant needs right now? If you had that money to spend right now in your area, the infrastructure that you oversee, where are those needs?
The voters want to get those rail projects quicker. So, we think that we need to make an investment in the infrastructure fund, the highway bill, so that we can keep these projects moving and create the kind of cities that we're going to need in the future.
I had the chance to catch up with Ann Mayer, the executive director of the Riverside County Transportation Commission, and Riverside County Supervisor John Benoit. I was able to ask them both about the importance of SCAG to the county of Riverside. Ms. Mayer also gave us an update on a critical highway project for those who have to drive west daily to jobs in LA and Orange counties. The 91 freeway widening project in Riverside and throughout the area right now. Give us kind of an update of where we are in that, because it's so important, and particularly those folks in the Riverside area who commute back and forth to Orange County to work.
Right. The 91 Corridor Improvement Project is the flagship project for the Riverside County Transportation Commission. It's a design-build project, so we're in the first phases of the project. The design is well underway. People are starting to see some signs of construction along the corridor, but they'll really start to see some big structures construction starting this summer.
How much value do you place in attending this event, and how important is it to you?
Well, I think the SCAG General Assembly is an important event, and it's important in that we're recognizing great successes throughout the Southern California region, talking about where we're going in the future. But really for me, a lot of it is validation that we're doing some really good things and that it's exciting, it's motivational, it provides additional momentum to keep some of these really important programs going. So I think it's an important conference, and I think it recharges everyone for the next year.
Ann Mayer, Executive Director, Riverside County Transportation Commission, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
We're talking with Supervisor of the 4th District in Riverside County, John Benoit. And Supervisor Benoit, thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely, and we're pleased to have the regional conference come visit us again in the 4th District in eastern Riverside County.
How important is SCAG to Riverside County and all the efforts that the 4th District is making toward economic improvement?
And all regional governments have become far more important over the last couple of decades, as governments at many levels have said, let's take the politics out and make sure that instead of just giving money based on which senator or congressman has been in office longest, let's deal with this on a more rational process and involve local associations of governments who can then prioritize on a less political basis what projects and what issues should get attention. So it's a good step in general for, I think, the country to be using these kinds of processes, but it makes organizations like SCAG ever more important, and we need to work very, very closely together to make sure those priorities are correct.
And ending with important comments on the economy, SCAG's 2014 Conference and General Assembly was particularly important because it welcomed the organization's new president, Carl Morehouse. Mr. Morehouse talked to us about the vital importance of education to the economy and specifically how important education is in order to keep Southern California on the forefront of technological innovation. Speaking with Carl Morehouse, and he's a very important individual indeed. He's the new president of the Southern California Association of Governments. And Mr. Morehouse, first of all, congratulations on the honor.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a great pleasure to take this on.
An important job. You'll have a seat with a very important perspective. Some of the key initiatives that you're going to be working on moving forward.
Well, I think primarily is anybody who's familiar with SCAG and its function as a metropolitan planning organization, we go through a regular cycle. It's every 4 years to do a regional transportation plan. It's now been linked because of state law through the Sustainable Community Strategy. We're in the cycle right now that we began a couple of years ago, and we're gearing up for the next one. And so it'll be to take that existing RTP SCS and building off of it. We don't have to go from whole cloth this time. That's the good part. And we'll be examining those parts that we can revise that, given technological changes and some other changes that have gone on in the universe, that we can figure out how to tweak it accordingly and continue to refine it. One of the bases of the entire thing is based on land use, an understanding of the various land use designations through all of our communities. And I think our Executive Director, Hasan Ikhrata, has done a phenomenal job of getting our staff out to truth what the situations are on the land use in the counties, because that drives so much of everything that we do. So that's going to be a major part of what we're doing right now.
How important is education in terms of taking and continuing California, Southern California in particular, continuing its leadership in technology and innovation?
Well, it clearly is a significant thing in all of California, but particularly Southern California. We've moved away from manufacturing jobs that used to be the major source of much of our income that kept our middle class whole. The trick now is, as we move forward, both the technology that's changing, the demographic changes that are occurring, retiring baby boomers like myself, how do we find a workforce that's going to be matched with those jobs? The question is, what kind of jobs are coming? That's one of the advantages of SCAG and its linkage to some of the universities that are doing research on this, is to determine what it is that we foresee is going to be happening. And maybe it's not a 4-year degree. Maybe this is working more effectively with the community colleges, the trade schools. It depends on what's going to happen. Then we need to make sure that we can get slightly ahead of the curve and make sure that the education matches the types of jobs we anticipate and as they occur to keep us economically viable.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this special segment of California CEO Magazine focusing on Southern California Association of Governments 2014 Conference and General Assembly. To learn more about SCAG, visit www.scag.ca.gov. If you have any comments or questions about this segment, just leave them in the box below. We also hope you share this segment with your friends or colleagues via LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. To see this segment and any of our other stories, please visit us often at californiaceo.net. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks so much for watching California CEO Magazine.